Welcome to RecTech, the recruiting technology podcast. I'm your host, Chris Russell. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a consultant who helps job boards and HR tech startups to navigate the waters of digital recruiting. On today's show, I'll be talking with Shane Gray, VP of Sales and Business Development for Clinch.io. Clinch is a new recruiting marketing tool that's getting some buzz in the recruiter sphere, so I wanted to have Shane on the show. Shane, welcome. How are things in Dublin today?
I'm good, Chris. Thank you very much for having me. Delighted to be here. Yeah, we're actually headquartered in Dublin. It's always a sort of a sticking point when you're Irish that we're from Ireland. We have an office in New York. It's our first overseas outpost, and we are in the fortunate position to have picked up clients now on 4 continents across the world. But we're looking very much to North America as one of our key markets.
All right, good. So let's tell listeners what Clinch is. So tell me more about the product itself. What does it solve? How do you help employers out there?
Okay, we solve quite a few talent acquisition issues, but I guess the root cause problem we're trying to fix is the often lack of information flow between candidates and employers before people make applications. And typically what we've seen is that in a lot of cases, candidates don't know enough about employers before they apply. Mm-hmm. And equally, employers usually are working with limited information about a candidate when they're deciding who to interview or take further down the process. And what we've seen over the last few months is a lot of candidates who are coming and looking at jobs are actually there to find out more about the company rather than to apply for the job that day. And that's why we see the huge drop-off rates in terms of traffic being delivered to career sites from quite expensive campaigns in many cases and actual applications that the company receives. So we see this as a big wasted opportunity for the employer. There's a lot of warm leads, as we would call them in sales and marketing, that are being ignored because they just don't want to apply today, and that's the problem we're trying to fix.
Mm-hmm. You kind of touched on it there, but what are some of the features of the product? I mean, one thing I saw in the demo that you gave me last week that really piqued my interest was the ability to kind of see in real time, the candidates that are coming to your site, and then easily connecting with them afterwards. So give us more of the feature set and talk about that specifically.
Yeah, sure. I suppose the features are broken over sort of several different components, and I'll take you through them. Well, the very first one is a content management system for real fast and easy creation of landing pages with either careers content or with job-related content, job recs that we've pulled in from the ATS system, but pages that have a lot more than just a job description. There's typically, pictures of the work, a video of people doing the work. We make it very easy to build these pages in a way that they're multimedia, so we can give the candidate a lot more information about the job. Mm-hmm. And then we give you the ability to put other calls to action on these pages. So if the person's there, finds the job through Indeed or another channel, arrives on the landing page, looks at the job, is there, finds out about the company, says, this is interesting, but I'm not going to apply for this job. We give the company the ability to put other calls to action on these landing pages so that the candidate, for want of a better word, can put their hand in the air and say, listen, I'm actually interested in working for you guys, but I'm just not ready to apply yet. The other component that we help with is, as a function of that, we also help with with the distribution of these pages. So we have some integrations into social. So we have a buffer sort of Hootsuite type app, largely designed specifically for recruitment with some scheduling to help push some of these landing pages out across social. Mm-hmm. And then we've built in quite a lot of workflow automation that's taken from the marketing and sales side of the world in terms of the ability to automate some of this nurturing of these candidates who do put their hands in the air and say, hey, I am interested, I'm going to like this, I'm going to download this piece of content, or I'm going to opt in for the newsletter, to automate the messaging that they get and to try and do it in such a way that it's not just a big mass email, that they're getting information in context and relevant to where they are in their journey, getting to know you as a potential employer. And then we've some ATS integrations, and they do 2 things. They help us get some job content in, mm-hmm. But they also help us understand more about where a candidate is in the post-apply process, so that automation piece can be also modified. So if a person does make an application, they're not getting bombarded with more marketing emails. If they are in the process of being screened or being interviewed, that we can cease that messaging. And if they get rejected for a reason that maybe they're not suitable for that job, we can then start up some other messaging that perhaps guides them in the direction of another role. And then wrapping all that up is some analytics, because we're really interested in understanding not just where people where applications are coming from, but really our goal is to try and help employers understand where the actual hires are coming from. So that's another key component of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Speaking of the metrics, what kinds of data will an employer learn about their jobs and candidates with
one
Clinch?
of the things that we've seen in some of the initial research that we did is a lot of candidates, when they visit an employer's pages, for sure, the really big employers, some people will go there directly, but the vast majority of passive talent that is sitting there and looking around for an opportunity typically starts in Google, waterfalls into the aggregators like Indeed and Monster and Glassdoor, Simply Hired, Career Builder, and all these other sites, and then finds their way to employers based on the types of roles that have been available. So, and what we're seeing is that sometimes the channels that are actually the source of discovery for this talent that's coming to your career site are not quite the same as the ones that are delivering you the applications. And that's quite interesting because sometimes the applications you're getting are not always from the people who are being successful, whereas some of these candidates that are coming and attaching themselves to your organization, looking at your content over a significant period of time, it's often weeks or months, are coming from some channels that you might have thought were underperforming, but actually are really delivering you quite good quality of candidates in front of you, but you're just finding it difficult to convert them into applications. And sometimes that's just the fault that the ATS application process can be quite arduous for people. It's not a straightforward thing to do.
Yeah. So how does Clinch kind of help in that, the landing page aspect of that and converting those candidates to actual hires?
Well, I guess the key is that one is by giving them some more content. There's two sides to that. We can do two things. By giving them more content, more information about the company, they get to learn more about the company. But equally, the company gets to learn more about the candidate because we measure how the candidate interacts and we measure their behavior as they consume this content. So these are quite interesting in terms of they give the employer advanced sort of notice as to whether this person is really interested in and whether they may fit their profile of somebody who they would ultimately like to hire. And we make it easy. So the candidate literally has to pop in an email address and we can turn that into usually quite a rich profile and combining that profile, which may have social profiles and location information in it, we're able to then help. We are also able to understand what jobs that candidate has been looking at. That all starts to wrap together into quite a nice picture of what was previously probably an anonymous person, because you can say, hey, this guy's been back for the last 3 or 4 months. He's been looking at iOS engineering roles. He hasn't looked at any other jobs except these. So you can start to make a judgment that this guy is probably quite interested in iOS engineering and is largely going to be skilled in that area versus the candidate who's rocking up and looking at 20 different jobs and perhaps in ATS world, jamming in applications to all 20 in the hope that one of them might stick.
Yeah, it strikes me that kind of scenario you just painted there is going to require an employer to kind of manage this differently as far as, what they do with other recruiting technology out there. So I would imagine that, and tell me if I'm wrong, you're going to have like sort of a dedicated person working at Clinch every day throughout the day in order to kind of take advantage of all these different features and technologies you guys can offer them.
Yes and no. We're seeing two sort of scenarios develop. Certainly if the talent acquisition team is fairly advanced and they are already carrying out some recruitment marketing, the use of the Clinch platform will be certainly well within their domain and they will spend significant time there. But really our goal is to automate more and more of it. And part of the reason in terms of even the landing page creation, everything has been designed that a recruiter with relatively basic web development skills, none in fact, literally a lot of this is drag and drop and menu driven, can build really nice landing pages, pull in marketing approved content and launch pages that the marketing team will say, hey, they're nice, they look on brand, we're good with that. So really a goal is to automate more and more of it. So once you get past the initial configuration and setup, that the recruitment team, as distinct from the recruitment marketing team, can spend time in there, because ultimately this is where the talent network of highly qualified candidates who are warm leads, interested in the organization, they are going to end up in Clinch before they end up in the ATS system.
Time to implement. How long will it take to get Clinch live?
Days to weeks. We've some integrations out which make the integration to the ATS very straightforward. So Lever, Greenhouse, Workday, Amorous, we have a few others in the pipeline. So literally you can pop in your integration keys, your recs will appear in Clinch. They can have a template wrapped around them, and so bang, if you've got 100 recs in your ATS, you'll have 100 beautiful landing pages ready to go. Content sometimes is the slow point. So you do need some content to get going. We've built some other integrations that try and make that easier to get. So we've some integrations with things like Instagram to help get employee-generated content into the system, because certainly from the analytics we do on the content that we're wrapping around these job descriptions, employee-generated content is generating much higher engagement levels than, let's say, a big corporate video with potential candidates.
Right. Okay. So you said Instagram. What other types of content do you help create, or are your clients creating now?
Chris, it ranges there from videos, and I think the next integration we will start to look at is the ability to pull in Instagram videos or Vines. Mm-hmm. Sometimes what we do is we just look at, a lot of employers do have content. Quite often it's siloed. So a good example might be in the world of financial institutions. You're trying to attract actuaries, or you're trying to attract accountants. So a piece of content that can be reused on a careers page can be something as simple as the annual report, but rather than putting it on the shareholders page, you pop it on the landing page that's been designed for forensic accountants or whatever sort of segment of the accountancy department you're trying to fill, and that piece of content can be used to give them and say, listen, this is what we're like as an organization. You can see how we do our accounting based on this, and so sometimes it's a case of just helping people repurpose content they already have.
What kind of feedback are you getting from your clients? Maybe name a couple of your clients and tell us what they're saying about the product itself.
Sure. I think, I suppose one of the big ones we get is, wow, it does a lot. Where do we start? So we typically get them started with, getting some marketing approved content up and running, getting the first landing pages built, and then we are able to, help them start to build this talent network. And then we kind of go into the second phase, which is trying to nurture them. So we're working with large corporates like some banks over here in Europe, and then further afield in your part of the world, people like Eventbrite and some of the Silicon Valley companies that are very, I guess, au fait with the world of talent acquisition and know how competitive it is, and are very keen to become more effective about the way they go about recruiting, rather than trying to necessarily do the old things more efficiently.
Yeah. It sounds like you are doing a lot of sort of nurturing and hand-holding with the client itself, especially in the beginning, right?
For sure, we have to, because in some, what we're about to launch, which is going to make this easier. At the moment, we've described a lot of, let's say, functions that are being stitched together. But one of the pieces we're putting together that will go live in the next couple of weeks will be, it's like a recipe. So rather than having to say, I'm going to do a campaign for this location, so I need a few pages for the location, I need to find out what jobs are in that location, and now I need some content. We're building some recipes there that will allow you to literally say, right, I am doing a campaign for jobs in Nashville. So you hit the button, the wizard will ask you a few questions, and then very quickly you'll have some landing pages with the jobs in Nashville on them automatically. The individual jobs will have Nashville related content wrapped around them, and some of the basic workflow that starts that nurturing process will be put in place. So that's the sort of stuff we're trying to sort of automate more of that now to make it easier for customers to get up and running a lot quicker.
Yeah. And from a technical standpoint, I think from what I saw, it kind of reminded me as more like in terms of level of ease of use, would be like using a Marketo or WordPress, kind of a combination of those things, in terms of setting things, getting things configured, and things like that. Is that?
Yeah, I think we're striving to be. We use those tools ourselves in our sales and marketing effort, mm-hmm. and we know that they can be quite complex. So we're certainly striving to make it an order of magnitude easier to get up and running with Clinch, that you could get somebody up and running with a couple of hours of training, rather than them needing to send them off to the content marketing academy to be able to be effectively using Clinch quickly. So that's very much our goal. We do realize recruitment teams don't have a lot of spare time. We're trying to save them time, mm-hmm. by giving them ultimately the ability to sort of when they have a rec that comes in and they're finding it difficult to source for, to be able to look into Clinch and say, hey, there's 5 people who meet that criteria, and you know what, those 3 were on the site on Friday, or one of them was on in the morning, let me go and call them, rather than having to spend the time reaching out to 100 people cold. So we're trying to save them time, but we are also conscious that in the short term they don't have a lot of time. So we're very much trying to make it a tool or a platform that a recruiter can use without needing major training.
A couple more questions for you, Shane, and we'll wrap up. Price range. So what does this cost?
We started, in the range of $12,000 per annum for very, very sort of modestly small companies hiring sort of 30 or 40, 50 people a year, up to several $100,000 for some of our bigger corporates.
What sort of advice? You've been with the company for how long now?
I've been there right from the very start. Okay. So I've seen it all at this stage. Okay. Advice for
getting the most out of Clinch. What's sort of your top 3 takeaways from what you've seen so far?
I think there's probably one, and it's really content. Content is really important, and we can automate everything. And I've seen this from different industries I've worked in, and you can come up with the best, most effective, compelling, ad bidding strategy for Google AdWords or all these, and this applies to all markets. But if the content and the copy is not good and isn't going to convert, you're in trouble straight away. So I think the content is really important. So we're really working. Part of what we do is, as you probably saw in the demo, is we do analyze the interactions with the content. So we're trying to make it that you can get started with a little bit of content and then very quickly understand what is working and what isn't, so you can focus your efforts on creating more content that is definitively working and improving your recruitment processes and improving the talent you're acquiring, rather than doing it blind, for want of a better word. Yeah.
Well, recruiting is marketing, as they say, and it sounds like Clinch is a tool that can certainly help in that aspect. Shane, thanks for joining us today. How can people find you online, give out your information, tell them how to contact you?
Yeah, you can find Clinch at Clinch, CLINCH.io, or you can reach me directly at Shane, SHANE, at Clinch.io. I'd always be happy to talk or give you a demonstration.
Awesome. Well, I'm Chris Russell. Follow me on Twitter at Chris Russell, and visit my site at chrisrussell.io. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much.
All right, Shane, take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, that was great.
Are you happy enough with that?
Yep.
Yeah, I think my mic got popped out just literally at once.